we are back with another informative video. 3 causes and 4 effects of soil degradation. So firstly, we will talk about the causes. The very first is the industrialization of agriculture. Since we started a very mechanized and industrialized kind of agriculture, the organic content in the world soil has gone down significantly. For any soil to be agriculturally potent, it must have a minimum organic content of 3 to 6%. But in many parts of the world, it is way below than 1%. 62% of India's soil has less than 0.5% of organic content. Why has this happened? Because when we grow 1 ton of crop, it means that we have removed 1 ton of topsoil. What are the means to put it back? So in the earlier times, we used to put it back naturally with the help of animals and trees on the farm, because green litter from the trees and waste of animals were the only ways to put it back in an organic content. People think a tractor will do it, but no, it will not do it. A tractor will plow the soil, but it will not enrich the soil as an animals or trees would have done. The second important thing is the meat consumption and the cattle grazing. Right now, 51% of million square foot kilometers of land is being farmed in the world. Out of this, 40 million square kilometers is used for raising animals and their feed, which is 75%. If you bring down your meat consumption by only 50%, 20 million square kilometers of land will become available for regenerating the soil, which we have already discussed in my previous video. We can regenerate that soil within 8 to 10 years of time. The third is the too much use of fertilizers. About 40 years ago, when we were into farming, fertilizer companies were coming and giving talks in villages about the virtues of fertilizer and what it can do. We just could not wrap our head around that what they were saying. In a temperate climate, the fertilizer that you put into the soil will stay up for like 12 to 9 years. But in a tropical climate, it will not stay for more than 3 to 4 months. Somehow we got this idea from somewhere that we can grow that food simply by throwing salts on the land, which is what fertilizers are. It is unbelievable that simply there is no way to grow food if there is no organic content that we input in the soil. Now coming to the 4 effects of soil degradation. The first is human health deteriorates. India's soil condition is so bad that the nourishment levels are going down in a disastrous way, particularly for Indian vegetables. Their nutrition value has dropped by 30% in the last 25 years. Everywhere else in the world, doctors are telling people to shift from meat to vegetarian diet. But in India, doctors are advising from meat to vegetarian diets as well. So, when the world is making an effort to shift from meat consumption to vegetarian ways of living, we who largely lived on vegetarian diet are trying to shift to meat because there is no nutrition in vegetation, in the food of what we consume. This is simply because we have not taken enough care of the soil. The micronutrient content in the soil has gone down. Why? There have been 70% of the Indian children below 3 years of age who are anemic today. If you go to a forest and pick up soil, it is full of life. That is how soil is supposed to be. If the soil is strengthened, then our bodies will be strength enough. If it is weakened, our body will be weakened too. Not in just terms of nourishment, but in very fundamental way as well. This means the next generation we produce will be less than us. That is a crime against humanity as well. Our next generation should be better than us. If they are worse than us, then we have done something fundamentally wrong. This is happening to India in a huge way because the soil is losing its strength. The second is the organic matter in the soil, which decreases. 87% of the plant's life, including you, me, and a multitude of microbes, worms, birds, animals, trees, and living on approximately 39 inches of the topsoil. This is the average topsoil that is living approximately on the planet. But the level of degradation has happened in the last 70 years, which is very scary. The amount of biomass in the soil has come down by around 80% in the last 50 years. This is really death of life. If we continue to do so, it is expected that by the end of this century, 80% of insect and worm will be gone. Okay, so what is the problem if the worms die? We do not like insects anyway. This is the attitude of the urban population. If all the insects die, all the life on this planet will end in few years. If all the worms die, you just have few months before everything ends. If the microbes die today, everything will end tomorrow. What is keeping you alive is microbial life on all levels. The organic content in the soil is going down at an alarming pace because we have the manicured sense of planet. If this soil has to be rich, it needs organic material which can only help by animal waste and green litter from trees. If all the human beings disappear tomorrow, the planet will become ecologically super rich in 10 years. Human beings, who are supposed to be the most evolved creatures on this planet, have become the deadliest problem for this planet. It is not that the planet is in peril, the planet will survive. It just has that it will become inhospitable for human life. So, the third is the cautious, vicious cycle of flood and drought. In India, if you just look back at last few years, wherever there is a flood, within 3 months there is a drought. This is because the only source of water we have in India is monsoon. Our rivers, lakes, ponds and wells are not sources of water. They are only destinations for rainwater. Only 4% of India's river water is glacial water. The rest is all monsoon water. In the last 100 years, the volume of water that is coming down in the form of monsoon has not changed. It is just that 50 years ago, the monsoons were happening between 70 to 140 days. Now it is happening between 40 to 75 days. That means downpours are heavier. When the rainfall falls on the ground, it should have percolated down the soil and gone into the aquifers. But because we have removed all the trees, it just flows away on the surface, eroding the soil and creating a flood. This is happening simply because it is all open ground. There are no trees. This is not enough organic activity in the soil to observe the water. If the water had percolated down the wells, ponds, rivers that would have water. Since rainwater is not retained, a drought is bound to happen after some time. Soil is the biggest problem because on this planet, if the right conditions, soil can be hold 80-100 more water than all the rivers put together. But as the organic value in the soil goes down, the ability of the holding water goes down as well. The fourth is lack of food that can cause civil strife. India has about 160 million hectares of arable land, but nearly 40% of this soil is labeled as distressed soil. That means in another 25 to 30 years of time, we may not have been able to grow food that we need in this nation. When there is no water, the food, the level of civil strife, that will happen and that will demolish the nation in very different ways. People from the rural areas where water compulsory is completely runs out are going to migrate in large numbers into the urban centers. This is not far away. With no infrastructure, they will sit on the streets. For how long, we don't know. If there is no food and water, they will obviously break into our homes as well. I am not some kind of domicile, but in the next 8 to 10 years, you will see how these situations can do so much damage to our countries. So that was all for today's video. We will be back with more videos. Do not forget to like, comment and subscribe our channel.